All right. Welcome back. I am here with Rachael Real of Rachael Real Real Estate in Chicago, Illinois. Hey, Rachel.
It's good afternoon, Jen. How are you?
Good. And we're here with Saul. This is a Better Call Saul episode. Hey, Saul. We've definitely landed on like the father of internet for real estate. I think that's your
Saul's subtitle.
Yeah, that's his title. Saul's been in the business forever, since he was born. Right, about that.
Actually, born on the crest of a wave and rocked in the cradle of the deep. Yes. Real estate is in my blood.
Exactly. And he's in California. So we were going to talk about today, obviously the market's insane, right? So like how do we get to a more stable market? What is a stable market? What's normal? What if we don't do it? I mean, we're just kind of walking down all the paths and see what we can come up with. So I think we started first of like, let's define a stable market.
Yeah. And we were talking a little bit about that and right, Rachel, it's like, and no matter how you define it, it's not what it is today.
Right.
So first you define where we are, and where we are is not a joke, right? Multiple offers, multiple thousands of dollars over list price sold before a property hits the MLS. Right. That's not a normal market. And a normal market would be more like more time, right?
Yeah, I think the actual definition of what my understanding was is about 6 months worth of inventory. And we were joking, not 6 seconds, not 6 minutes, but like 6 months worth of inventory ish. Imagine like,
right. You can go a little above, a little below, where it's just that, a buyer and a seller each have an equal opportunity, in whatever they're doing, and we're definitely not, we're not facing that right now.
Well, and I feel like close, right?
We're not even close. No. And I feel like everybody kind of understands how we got here with there hasn't been as much building going on. There's been a high demand for there's been more buyers and sellers for a long period of time. And now here we are, right?
Well, and interest rates
are too low.
Lows. So now people can buy. And as a matter of fact, they can end up buying more than they could have afforded a couple of years ago.
True. But what Rachel and I were talking about earlier when we were in Clubhouse for the Real Estate Fight Club was like, not everybody can buy though. Like it's already shifted into only people with influx of cash can buy. So that leaves you with a lot of it's unaffordable.
Those first time buyers really are in a pickle right now because they're the ones that have the lower percentage rate down or the lower percent down payment. They have a need for closing costs. They just don't have the liquid cash to allow them to go over and above asking price and to put that money down and compete with people who don't have a closing cost credit request. Yeah. They just don't have it. So the people that are able to buy right now are ones that are move up buyers. As long as they've already sold their other house and they're living out of their car, they're okay. But the rest of them having a really hard time competing.
I don't think ours is necessarily to like first-time home buyers because we're dealing with a lot of first-time home buyers that are buying like we're in Ohio. So like an average first-time home buyer maybe would have been like maybe around 150, but we're dealing with a lot of first-time home buyers that are at like 400. I mean, these kids have money.
So
and we definitely don't see that price point here. Saul's price point is like 3 times that.
Yeah.
First of all, it's real basic. It's supply and demand.
Yeah.
Right. So it's real basic. It's supply and demand. And what's driving demand? One of the things driving demand is lower interest rates. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's pushing supply down is
no houses being built.
Not being built, hard to build them, restrictions, NIMBY.
And people living in their homes longer.
Yeah. So now we've been through these before. It used to be that to buy a property, it's like almost like a cultural shift if you think about it. To buy a property, only one of the adults in the household had to work. And the one adult in the household, it didn't take 2 people for many, many years. When I was selling real estate, it only really took 1 for the most part. And then there was a shift. And all of a sudden it took 2 and 1 was not enough. 1 income was not enough. And now we're very used to. And now, Rachel, you just mentioned the next shift is now it's not only 2 people working, but 2 people working that have built equity.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
That's like the next step. So whether you can see this progression of change in financial requirements to be a homeowner.
Yeah.
So being a homeowner has become more difficult over the years. I take it all the way back to my parents' first home in that they purchased in 1952 in San Diego for $9,000 in Point Loma, in a real classy neighborhood in San Diego today. And my mother didn't work, and my dad had a blue collar salary, and they bought this house in this really great place in because in those days that's all it took.
Right.
And then we got to the point where it took two.
Yeah.
And now we're at the point where it takes two plus cash, right?
But you know what?
God forbid you're self-employed. It's even worse.
Oh my God, it's worse.
My husband and I are both self-employed, and we've had the same jobs for me 16 and him 25, and we were turned down twice.
Well, now you touch on another point we should talk about some other time, maybe, which is loan qualification, how out of date loan qualifying.
Oh, it is nuts.
Really
Don't even get me started on that.
In the 1940s, right after the war, and we're still looking at those criteria to qualify people, and it doesn't necessarily make sense anymore.
Right, square peg in a round hole on that one.
Well, the whole real estate industry is out of date. I think that's like what we talk about all the time. But Saul, to your point, as you lead it down, and we have talked about this separately, I think, is okay. So if it now takes two people with working not for themselves and have a bunch of cash saved up, what's the next step? So the next step is people going in together to buy homes, right? Or buying fractions of a home.
That's one. Multifamily, back to the old days. What's old is new again, right? And so now people living together, that's one. And here's another one. Change the zoning in the country. I'm not advocating, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Change the zoning so on all the single family lots, you can build a second property. You can build a second unit. Densification. And now if on my lot, I could add another property, I don't have the land costs. So that, right? I mean, so there, and we've seen this happen historically. If we look at different parts of big cities as they developed, as they were single family, you go to some parts of cities, they got houses and then duplexes and fourplexes and then 8 and 12 and 16, all these different, right, in these neighborhoods. And so, and that's coming. Because
that would be such a drain on like the sewer line. And
I'm just thinking of all the flooding problems for crying out loud.
God.
I'm just making the suggestions now, and I didn't make that up. I actually have seen those. We've shared, I think, in social media some of those proposals now where that's exactly what is being said at the federal level. Now, I won't make a judgment as to whether that's good or bad, but I will say as a real estate practitioner, I need to know about it and figure out how to take advantage of it, whatever that might be, how to make that work within my business, because that's the environment that I have to function in.
Well, or you build up, right? So like in Vietnam, like a lot of in Hanoi specifically, it's a very large city. There's a ton of people, and they'll build like levels. So like when you have kids, each kid now and their family gets like a different level of the house.
Okay.
So, I mean, because land is finite.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's going to have to be something like that. But if building costs remain too high, then you're going to have haphazard building by, Billy Bob and his cousin after 10 beers.
But
and then your six flats coming tumbling down.
Well, and then you complicate it even more because of the cost of natural resources to build.
Right, exactly.
Complicate that more by saying, but we're not going to have gasoline. We're not going to do away with all petroleum in the next 5 years or 10 years or whatever. And so we're actually doing things to drive the cost of raw materials up, which will drive the cost of. So it's like there's.
And then, but the lenders won't lend on it though. So they'll be too high that they'll be like, well, we can't lend on that because it won't appraise, and we have to mitigate our risk as the bank. So it's like, okay.
So now you just touched on another thing. We should write this down. We'll talk about it later. But that is that in real estate's the only major asset in which there is no futures market. And so when you look at assets, you look at spot market, futures market. spot
Okay.
market, futures market. In
Okay.
real estate, 60% of like all the assets are real estate, and there is no futures market. Why? There is no spot market. If you could develop a spot market, you could create a futures market. The futures market frees up more capital and amazing things could be done. And that could be one of the big changes that's going to take place in the next couple of years.
I don't understand really a lot of that, but that sounds interesting.
Well, it'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah. Do you understand?
A spot market is like the stock exchange.
Okay.
What is that share of stock of IBM worth? It's what the last person just paid for it,
Mhm.
and what the next one is, and it's in a marketplace.
Right.
And stuff is bought and sold. I did some of that myself this morning. I can went and bought and I sold, and I can do that. And if anybody wants to know the value of that stock, it's based on what the activity that's taking place in. You hear this term all the time, right?
Yeah.
That's the spot market. That's what people are buying it for now. And then the futures market is, well, I don't really need I don't need the barley today, but I want to order it for 6 months from now. I'll pay it, right? And so there's this futures market, and that the futures market and a spot market add a number of things, and real estate doesn't have it. See, so real estate is all cockamamie, right?
Yeah.
There are issues with the way.
The perfect word for it. Yeah.
Let's blow it up. Start over.
We can talk about there are certain things that if you could start, and we've said this for years, if you could start all over again, how would you do it? And now it's becoming very visible as to the way things should be done.
But let's talk about, I think there's a lot of like craziness that can absolutely happen. But what do you guys think about now? There's a lot of commercial buildings that are vacant. So what about making those like homes? You know what I mean?
I mean, I was looking online the other day in a Southwest Michigan, and they had a couple of old, one was a box factory that had been converted into lofts.
Mm-hmm.
One was actually a middle school. They took a middle school and converted it into condos. It was the coolest looking thing. But I think that's a very interesting and cool use of space. You know, when you've got all these abandoned buildings, and you've got a lot of commercial right now where people are going from these big buildings to much smaller spaces because they don't need them anymore. So what are we going to do with some of those?
Yeah, but I think we still have the problem with the cost to renovate it though too.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Taking a middle school and converting it from a middle school into condos for families is a very different use.
Yeah.
And then you've got
this is all being looked at, obviously, right now.
Yeah.
Major cities in the United States, take New York. Think of all of the commercial real estate in New York that isn't going to be needed for commercial space.
Oh my God, so much.
That's going to be an insane amount of property.
Now, the major consulting firms in the country are already looking at how do you reposition that real estate? What is it best utilized for? And I learned some interesting things the other day. I was listening to a podcast, and they talked about, if you got a high-rise building, 60 stories up, the 61st story, if that's vacant, it isn't worth very much.
Right.
It's if you try to turn it into some other use. But if you got a lot of retail, that's easier to find different kinds of tenants for than something so real fascinating to look at what people who understand land use are thinking about the reallocation and use of these existing structures in these major cities. And they're looking at it, It
could be kind of like, how in Florida you buy a condo and there's like the bay or on it, you get like a little boat dock. It could be something like that, like a 60-story building, you buy a unit, but you get like an office on like a different floor. It's like your boat dock. That would be cool. I'd buy that.
Well, some different business models for buildings, maybe. But to get back to the subject, so we got a market that's abnormal.
Yep.
And we want to, so it will move towards normal. Now that doesn't mean to the way it was. It means to the way it's
normal.
The new normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's going to stabilize at something that'll be a little bit different.
But in order to do that, I think interest rates have to rise, and there's no indication that will happen.
Yeah, not right now. That's a real interesting subject, just to even look at interest rates and talk about interest rates worldwide, and then throw the fact that the government, that we're spending trillions of dollars that we don't have, and it's like we've given up Keynesian economics looks conservative today when we compare it to modern monetary theory, which is just print all the money and just don't even worry about it. And nobody's even talking about it.
Right.
You know what, in my mind, makes real estate a better investment, because you'll be paying that real estate off with much cheaper dollars. in the
That's
future.
true. I didn't think about that.
Oh man, the dollars.
You mean yen?
Huh?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, you really? So now buy. This is the time to buy. And if you can get loans at these low interest rates, and I tell people, people who are close to me, that I don't worry about any liability. Go ahead and borrow as much as you can for as long as you can. Because we hear this conversation, oh, should I go 15 years or 30? So
no, do 30.
Do 30 because you're going to be paying that money back. That's my family. I'm advising my family. You're going to be paying that money back over it with cheaper dollars over time. And it's just an unbelievable opportunity for people to add hundreds of thousands of dollars to their personal wealth right now over their working lifetime.
But if you're taking that money and you're buying real estate, theoretically you're buying some type of rental, right? And then what if that thing passes like that you post?
I was talking about your personal residence.
Oh, your personal residence.
Right? You're going to refi, you're going to go out and you're going to get a 15-year, no, get a 30-year loan.
Yeah. Right.
And unless the interest rate is lower on the 15-year, and then you know how long you're going to stay there, and you can figure out that crossover.
You got to do the math. Yeah.
You got to do the math on it. Right. But long term for the most part, because, and this is a key point, that the dollar is going to be worth less. Run those two words together. The dollar is going to be worth less in the future. And if it's worth less, what then becomes valuable? Equity assets.
Right.
Equity assets. What's our prime number one equity assets? Real estate. So why are there iBuyers? Why are there institutional buyers buying up all this stuff? And everybody thinks they're going to flip it. They're not going to flip it. This isn't about flipping.
Yeah.
This is about buying equity assets and holding on to them because the currency is going to be worth less.
Right. But that's scary.
It's true, though. We've seen it happen. I'm living in a house right now that's probably $800,000 to $1 million house. Now, if I put it on the market, I could get $1 million for it. And my wife, Janie, paid $19,000 for it. The money
You're so bad for business. You need
money is worth less.
That's crazy. Okay, so we're thinking to get to the new normal, land people will figure out how to take these vacant commercial buildings, make them like more usable. What else can we do?
Retrofit them for some residential use. Yeah, I think the rates are going to have to go up. I think we're going to have to find a way to make it so that the people that are first time buyers that have less down have a way to compete. We've got to be able to find a way to get them back into the market, because right now they're getting their butts kicked.
We're spending trillions of dollars on wasting trillions of dollars. A valuable program might be a home ownership program where you could, provide somehow some type of government program that helps people get into houses that helps them through. So I don't know, but we are spending lots of money.
We can't do that because they're going to be competing unless somehow. Why would somebody sell their property to a buyer who has all these restrictions when they could sell it to somebody with no restrictions for more money?
With 20% down and a waive the inspection.
So as long as you don't have the supply, then we're gonna have to deal with that, right? So then you bring up another question. So how long would it take for there to be ample supply?
Oh my God! If we started today, for a long time.
And based on that, how do we restructure our businesses as realtors to make sure that as this marketplace changes and the real estate industry changes, we're still doing the things that keep us relevant?
You spend every commission dollar that you make and buy a rental. That's what I do.
Well, yeah, but now if you don't, not California.
Not California. You buy them in Ohio. But not until I'm done buying, then you can buy some.
So you buy, if I don't want to buy rental property, although, and I'm a real estate advocate, I really believe in owning real estate and builds wealth, but would be hesitant personally as I look at it right now, just because I believe private property rights are under attack.
Obviously.
I think they're dramatically under attack. And matter of fact, I went on my walk today, and when I got back, when I was on my walk, I was thinking, I'm concerned about the country. I'm concerned about the world. I haven't heard anything from my organization, my friends at NAR. I want to know, realtors, what are we doing to stand up for private property rights? Now, let's not sit back and let this all just vanish. What are we doing? So I actually sent an email to the president of NAR this morning and copied Bob Goldberg, who's the CEO of NAR, and I got an answer.
Do they
back.
still read your emails, Saul?
I got an answer.
No, I'm just kidding.
I got an answer. I already got an answer back from Bob.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And he said that they're actually, he agreed with what I said, and that they're putting together the talking points, and I'll be seeing them soon. So
Okay.
I think all this stuff with this, as we look at owning, part of what made owning possible are the tax benefits that come with owning.
Right, but if those are removed,
And if you start removing that, you're messing with too many things at once.
yeah.
And there's no way to measure what works and what doesn't work when you do that. So I was relieved this morning when I got an email back from Bob Goldberg that said that NAR is working on the talking points. They're going to get back to me. I love it because when I was selling real estate in 1981, Congress passed something called the Economic Recovery Tax Act, ERDA. And because we were in a great recession and we had to come out of this recession. So there's all kinds of things. And if you're not a tax person, I'm not going to bore you with it, but it was all these great things to benefit real estate. And what are the things that relate directly to real estate? Well, there was the rollover of your personal residence deferral of gain. There was the 125,000 over. There was a once in a lifetime exclusion of gain.
Okay.
There was the deductibility of property taxes and interest. There it was capital gains benefit. So there are all these things that affect the values of real property. And in 1981, we got really preferential treatment in the tax code that really got real estate going, got things going. If you were a new first user, residential income property, you got 175% declining balance depreciation.
Wow.
If you were a builder, you could get 200% declining balance depreciation. And why? Because they wanted people to build new things. And so they gave people tax incentive to build new things. So there are ways to do it. But the way California says, if you don't build it, we're going to take away from you.
Right.
That's the opposite.
Right. That doesn't help.
Right. And so
Yeah.
there are things that can be done. But this tax package that's been proposed is not beneficial to the real estate industry. It's very detrimental to that, and it's detrimental to the economy as a whole, and it's detrimental to private property rights. And where do we stand? I thought, where do we stand, NAR? Well, I was glad to hear that we stand somewhere.
That's good. Yeah, that's stupid. Hopefully it won't pass. And this we're referring to what is it called, Saul?
$11.99 in California, but then the new tax proposal by the president, which will affect everybody, right? And federal taxes, increase capital gains tax. These are terrible, terrible things. Most people don't understand anything about this.
Maybe they're trying to kill real estate.
And
but I think too, like in order to kind of ease up and to get more going, we have to figure out how to free the people that are like making it so the builders can build. Like we've got it, they're so far behind, right? Because they shut down for COVID too. So like, how do we get that?
Well, yeah. And then natural resources are very expensive. So this is
we just need to buy Canada. Let's just take Canada. We'll commandeer it. Eminent domain.
So I think, again, this tax thing is a way to help us move forward. But I want to go back to the individual.
Okay.
The broker and agent. So your world is changing.
Right.
And the number of sales to make the same amount of money is going to change.
It's going to be a lot higher because,
probably going to have to sell more to make the same.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
So it's time to start thinking about these things, right?
Right.
You're going to have to work harder to keep more.
Right.
And so
and you're going to have to know more to get the deal.
You have to know more.
Absolutely.
This is a really big point for me. And that is there's many things taking place in the real estate industry that are different, like Picasso. I'm not promoting anybody. Picasso, where they sell you half a house, right? Or these equity share programs, or you can buy a property with another college student, right? Parents of college, there's bungalow.com, and there's all these different kinds of things. Now, And then there's this thing, dynamic yield maximization of an otherwise static asset, like Airbnb, where you can rent it out. So as all these different uses of real estate become more well-known to the consumer, agents are going to have to learn about this.
Right.
Yes.
And get in the middle.
My role in the future is I'm the real estate expert. I'm the, oh, you heard
The
about
consultant.
this new business? Let me tell you about that new business. Oh, you've heard about this new website that does this? I know all about that website. Oh, you know, you can buy and do, oh, let me tell you about that. And so you're the go-to person for real estate. And as that real estate world changes, as marketplaces change, then part of the job of the person that's carving out their position in the future as they move forward in this changing field, it'll give you things to do and things for you to latch onto, and it'll allow you to differentiate yourself. And that's the key, right? Is how do you differentiate yourself from all the other people that say they sell real estate?
Well, I think too,
you've got to be able to provide that additional value to the consumer.
Exactly.
You know? And when you can prove that you have that additional knowledge, that's huge to your client base, to your community, and everything else.
Yeah, and I think it'll kind of go in one of two ways. Either you're going to be like that, or you're going to be like an employee.
You're falling off the deep end.
Well, you'll be like an employee, a customer service and order taker, where it's like you're just.
That's the other, and that's a great point. So as you look at it in the future, and we talked about this before, is like two ways to employ people: independent contractor or employee. Real estate, for a lot of reasons, always been independent contractor, and on my mind, it always seemed like if you could get an employee model, you could start delivering better services, but it would take a big, deep pocket to do that. Nobody's been able.
You actually can't, though. I don't think you can.
Well, I think you can. It's just going to take time.
We'll have to fight about that.
Yeah, and they're going to do it. And no doubt in my mind, they're going to do it. But that doesn't mean that's the only game in town.
Right.
So we all talk about, hey, the low standards, people don't even know what they're doing. They get in the business, they make it bad for everybody. Well, maybe there's a place for these companies, these brokers that hire employees. They get to hire all the new people.
Right, train them.
And train them. And then as people get, and some people will stay in that structure, but others say, you know, I'm in this because I'm an entrepreneur. That's right. I love real estate. I want to own real estate. So now I know enough. I'm going to step out on my own, open a brokerage firm, and maybe it just becomes a place to cultivate.
And you as an independent contractor, and you personally, all three of us have taken the time to educate ourselves on all of these different things, where a lot of the newer agents don't do that. They just want to be the order taker.
Well, even the older agents don't do that. The ones that
they don't. I think in technology has caught up with a lot of them too, where they're like, hey, I'm overwhelmed. I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing until I'm done. Right. But in order for agents that are on an employee status somewhere, that would be the only way that those managing brokers and those brokerages would be able to require that they are trained, is by making them employees.
Right.
Get past that, and then you can,
but the problem with the employee model is that it's going to drop commissions too, which is.
It is. Well,
it has to.
That's going to happen anyway. And then there's this other.
Right. I see that happening regardless.
Yeah. And so and then there's the whole mortgage side.
Yeah.
Which we haven't talked about. So the whole mortgage side, the whole mortgage side is going to collapse. And when the mortgage side collapses and there aren't commissions on the mortgage side and things change, there's a lot of money on that side that's going to, if this is done right, it's going to help the realtor stay in the transaction. And so there's lots of new technologies and new things that are happening. But
why do you think the mortgage thing's going to collapse? What do you mean?
I've seen it because I talked to people and seen the technology.
Can you expand a little bit?
Well, so the mortgage, think about how ineffective the mortgage world is. It's as bad as real estate.
It's ridiculous.
Matter of fact, it's even worse. I was going to refi my house, and I've gone through 3 loan processors at the place that I apply. 3 loan, because we're going to change the terms of the loan. You need a new loan product. It's like, this is unbelievable. And
it's very, very inefficient. Very,
and it costs a lot, and it costs a lot of money. So without getting into the specifics of it, it's like $6,000 on average per trailer.
Right.
It's a big amount. And it goes, it's not just now, but there's all this life after a mortgage, life after the loan closes, servicing fees and early payoff fees. And so there's all kinds of money on this back end. Now, if you knew sooner that if you were buying up loans in the secondary money market, that's your thing, right? And you buy them. And when loans get paid off, you got to rebalance portfolios. What if you know about that ahead of time? What if there was some pipeline to you where you could somehow know that loans were getting paid off earlier, allow you to get your house in order? Would that be worth some money? How much money? How much can you squeeze out of that? We're talking about taking friction out of transactions. So now you look at, everybody complains about the real estate agent and the real estate market. Look at the loan market.
Oh, that's the word. That's by far the worst part of it.
It's worse.
You know, it is the worst part. When I think of any time there's closings delayed or there's stuff that comes up at the last minute, it is 99.9% of the time it's the lender.
So the
mortgage process.
The cost on the real estate side are almost duplicated on the lending side. The costs. And you don't need, why you need both of those sets of costs.
Plus, if you're in an attorney state, you got that cost too.
Don't even get me started on that.
So in my mind, you ask me, why would I believe that there's big changes coming in the mortgage market? Number one, because it's very inefficient.
Yeah.
And number two, everybody's trying to make everything more efficient now.
Right. As it should be. I mean, there's no reason not to be, you know?
Exactly. So where's the waste, right? Where are the big chunks of waste you can go after, right? You've squeezed the little pieces out, what's left, and the real estate side, and everybody concentrates on that. But the mortgage side's a really important piece, an important side to this, and we shouldn't lose sight of it.
No, that makes sense.
Are you seeing, both of you guys too, are you seeing, like, I know, and Jen, we kind of briefly talked about it a little bit, but there were a lot of things technology wise that shifted during COVID to make things more efficient and streamlined. So you've got e-closings, electronic notaries, things that have just been made things a lot more efficient. And in my market, I was talking to one of my attorneys, and I said, do you see these things sticking around? He's like, no, they're already gone. They were strictly put in place just for COVID, and they're back.
People are already.
We don't need a 3-hour closing if we can do it in 10 minutes.
Exactly.
So why are we doing this?
Because you have so many realtors and I think it's the realtors, because you have so many of them that want to go back to that because they think the closing is about them.
Yeah, but you're talking about things like title. These are title companies, lenders, the people that aren't the ones that are sitting at the closing table for 3 hours twiddling their thumbs. You're talking about just making things more efficient, being able to close things on a much faster level. I'm surprised to see that those things that I was hoping to make the whole process more efficient are disappearing as fast as they showed
It's because people are stuck in their ways. But so
we don't have closings in California.
I wish I was in California.
No, you don't.
But back when I was doing it, you call the escrow officer or the escrow officer would call you and tell you we closed, right? We recorded. That was the big deal. When do we record, right?
Right. Yeah.
Usually record in the morning. We recorded. That was it. No, we didn't go sit on the table.
In Ohio, you get you disperse all the money before it gets recorded. Do you believe that?
California got nothing to do with it. The escrow is handled by a neutral third party, and that
makes so much more sense. Oh my God, California does something that makes sense. I'm shocked. So if we're going to wrap this up and say, okay, in order to stabilize the market without blowing everything up and starting over, the best thing to do is like take the current land and add additional like uses for it, like different housing, maybe different levels, another house, something like that, right?
Yeah, we've got to get the municipalities we've got to get the municipalities on board to start being a little more flexible with these kind of things.
Densification and walkability. And I'll send you a link in Grand Rapids. They actually did a study in Grand Rapids, Michigan, to look at the best way to go in and develop and redevelop and minimize displacement. And another benefit of walkability and density is the decrease in the cost of services, less driving, better for the
absolutely.
Right. I mean, so there's all this stuff positive.
There's a lot of benefits to that. Absolutely.
Now, so realtors, and so this is for me, this is positive. Realtors believe in all this stuff. Right. And so if you read the preamble to the Code of Ethics, and I love it, and I said, so it's under all is the land upon its wise utilization and widely allocated ownership depend the survival and growth of free institutions and of our civilization. Realtors should recognize the interest of the nation and its citizens require the highest and best use of the land. So that's what we're about. We're about finding the best ways to utilize the land and getting wide distribution of ownership. That's what realtors are. That's what we
Right.
pledge to. How are realtors different than everybody else in my mind? Because if you're really a realtor, then you love real estate, you believe in real estate, and you believe in making the most out of it. And to do that, we
Right.
need to bring data into it so we can make informed decisions with the data to help us get out of some of the messes. We can't afford to any longer to waste our most precious resource, the real estate.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. We don't have any, there's hardly anything else to waste. Like there's no, I mean, land is finite. Like you can't do it. And then we're talking about reallocating the empty buildings into some type of housing. And maybe those could go for something, any of that could be like designated affordable housing where it's only for certain income. They do that all the time, you know, like have certain legislation for that where you can't get outbid by somebody who has more money.
Yeah, so double-sided problem, right? Availability and affordability.
Right.
Right.
If you don't have availability, you are
not going to have affordability.
Right. Right.
No, that's crazy. All right. Any final thoughts on that? Blow it up.
I don't have any final thoughts. I think we need to keep working forward and pushing and looking at, and this is, to me, this is the key piece to being able to come back to some kind of normal. And that's to pay close attention to what the government's going to do to us tax-wise. Because the tax decisions that get made in the next 6 months are going to have a dramatic effect on all of us and on our real property. And it's either going to make it better or it's going to make it worse. And so we need to start paying attention. We can't trust that we send people off to Congress to do the job and that they're smart enough to get the job done, because they're not smart enough to get the job done.
Well, they have a lot of competing priorities.
They absolutely. And I think it's important for us as realtors to try and encourage other realtors to take on that same passion for getting these things, you know, being in tune to all these things, sharing these things with our client base, our sphere, all the, you know, the community, and explain this is part of what we do and this is why we're important. So, you know, make sure that you understand these things and encourage other realtors to also, you know, keep up with that stuff.
That's
Get involved.
That's a great point, Rachel, because again, back to that in 1980-81, the Economic Recovery Tax Act, I learned those 5 things that affected real estate, right?
Yeah.
Learned them inside and out, and then everybody wanted to know about it. And and then the realtors, they would hide behind this thing saying, I can't give you tax advice. I wasn't giving anybody tax advice.
Right. You're just saying, you're putting that information out.
Just putting out that information, right? And it's something people wanted to know about because it affected them. So here's an opportunity. Pay attention to it. And then, Rachel, you're right. Take it out and talk to people about it, because nobody else is going to talk to them about it.
No.
Nobody else is doing it. I guarantee, I can tell you there's nobody in my market that's doing that.
No, definitely not. So you're going to send us an article, Saul, you said?
Yeah.
On Grand Rapids?
Yeah.
I'll send you, I'll send you the link to it's about an hour demonstration of the results.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, cool. Okay. So if anybody wants that.
Can't give it to anybody else.
All right. Well, Rachel, if people want to get a hold of you or they have a referral, what's the best way?
Best way to reach me is my cell phone at 630-542-8688 or online at RachaelReal.com, and that's Rachael.
Yep. And Saul, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Saul at bettercallsaul.realtor. Saul at bettercallsaul.realtor.
That's the best one.
We're relaunching our blog, The Data Advocate.
Oh, so great.
DataAdvocate.com will come back online here. There's just a splash page right now, but we'll be coming back online because we need to start having these conversations about data, about data distribution, about transparency, about privacy, about ownership.
There's no privacy anymore.
No. Oh, but there could be.
We sold it all for free.
We're gonna have to start talking about so that's surveillance capital. That's a whole nother great subject. Surveillance capital.
Oh my God. You're gonna make me crazy. I'm gonna
Jen's head has just exploded, right?
I'm building like some kind of, what do they call it, the bunker or whatever, packing food and all that craziness. All right. And if you want to get a hold of me, it's 513-400-1691. I appreciate you both being on in our Better Call Saul.
Thanks for hosting.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.